What's up, everyone? Normal Christians Podcast. My name is Bo. As always, I reserve the right to get smarter. And in this episode, I want to talk about a group that I just haven't talked about at all. Just really haven't represented well in this podcast so far. And that group is Satanists. Really don't feel like I've given them their due and really given them credit. Obviously, I'm joking. I'm a Christian. And so, not really representing Satanists very well, I would assume. There's not too many of them listening or interested. But I have come across a couple of articles, stories, that involve Satanists. And so I thought, you know what? It's time to do an episode on Satanists, talking about them. And really, one of the stories I ran across deals with the Texas abortion law that went into effect. And the headline is really what grabbed me. This is the headline: Why Satanists May Be the Last Best Hope to Save Abortion Rights in Texas. And this is a Salon article, and if you know Salon, it shouldn't be a surprise if you know that organization, that they are writing for abortion rights. And the subtitle for that article is the quote-unquote non-theistic organization joins the fray with a last-ditch legal maneuver to save abortion rights in Texas. And so here's how the article kind of goes, at least some parts from it. It says, as pro-choice and reproductive health groups are scrambling to make sense of Texas's new near-total abortion ban that went into effect this week, obviously this is a little bit of an older article, it appears their efforts to skirt the law are getting an unexpected boost from one organization in particular, the Satanic Temple. And let me just say, what a great endorsement of your position. Whatever it is, when the Satanic Temple is on your side. And really, one of your best hopes for your position coming through. I just think that that's such a strong argument for any position or any stance. Continuing. The Supreme Court on Wednesday night allowed the state to implement a ban on the procedures after 6 weeks, before most women know they are pregnant, with no carve-outs for rape or incest. Until it is blocked or overturned, the law effectively nullifies the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, which established abortion as a constitutional right. And then it talks about that being in Texas. So that's, if you don't know what I'm talking about with the abortion ban in Texas, that's pretty much it. That it is banned after 6 weeks. And as this article pointed out, and many news organizations have pointed out, a lot of women don't even know they're pregnant around that time. That's kind of one of the contentions with it. And there's a whole nother part of the law that deals with whistleblowing is not the right word, but you're able to sue people who either get abortion or assist in the abortion. It's my understanding in it. That could even be the Uber driver who drives them. So it's a very strict law. And there has that interesting wrinkle, which is going to make it difficult in some things in court. Continuing on, after it explains the abortion ban, the next line is, enter the Satanic Temple. Very ominous line for anything that comes next. But enter the Satanic Temple after the abortion ban. Continuing, the, again, quote-unquote, non-theistic organization, which is headquartered in Salem, Massachusetts, joined the legal fray this week by sending a letter to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration demanding access to abortion pills for its members. The group has established a, quote, abortion ritual, end quote, and is attempting to use the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which was created to allow Native Americans access to peyote for religious rights, to argue that its members should be allowed access to abortion drugs, like these drugs that are abortionists, for religious purposes. So, if you didn't get what I was saying with my terrible reading, which hasn't gotten any better over the weeks, is that the Satanic Temple is trying to use a law that was created for certain religious things. Specifically, it highlights Native Americans could have access to something like peyote, which is not legal, but it could be legal for them because it's being used for a religious ritual. And so that's the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So the Satanic Temple is saying, hey, hold on. Part of our religious rituals, our religious sort of, I don't even know what they said. I guess it's a ritual, is abortion. They said they have established an abortion ritual within their church. And so this ban, in effect, keeps them from being able to participate in a religious ritual, which just so happens to be abortion. So they are demanding that their members have access to drugs, which are abortionists. And then here is a quote. I am sure Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who famously spends a good deal of his time composing press releases about religious liberty issues in other states, will be proud to see that Texas's robust religious liberty laws, which he so champions, I'm butchering this quote again, will prevent future abortion rituals from being interrupted by government restrictions meant only to shame and harass those seeking an abortion. Satanic Temple spokesman somebody told the San Antonio Current. And then continuing the quote, the battle for abortion rights is largely a battle of competing religious viewpoints. And our viewpoint that the non-viable fetus is part of the impregnated host is fortunately protected under religious liberty laws, he added. And then the article concludes, it's unclear whether the Satanic Temple strategy of appealing to the Biden administration will work. Last year, the group tried to overturn abortion restrictions enacted in the state of Missouri, but the Supreme Court declined to hear their case. So the Satanic Temple is trying to skirt around the new laws, saying, hey, abortion is part of our religious rituals practice, and you cannot, by law, restrict that. And they're going to try to make that case. As the article kind of concluded, probably not going to work out. But I read this and I thought, oh goodness, man, oh man, what some people are doing to try to continue abortion, specifically these laws and these loopholes that they're trying to exploit for that. I do have to give credit. It is a creative way to try to get around the law. That is not what I expected when the law went into effect, to hear about. I knew there would be challenges. Of course, there's going to be challenges. I assume it will eventually make its way through the courts and probably find its way to the Supreme Court, which, don't quote me on this, I believe next year in 2022, I think early 2022, is it Mississippi or Missouri? I don't remember which one, but one of those states and their laws is going to be up again, is going to be before the Supreme Court. So way before anything with Texas ever gets there. This next term, I believe it's their next term, or maybe it's the term in 2022, whatever it is, the Supreme Court has this case, which is a huge case dealing with abortion and Roe v. Wade and all that sort of stuff. So that's really the one to be looking out for with the Supreme Court. But I'm sure that this will get challenged. It'll go through the courts, and we'll see where it lands. But boy, the creativity of this whole sort of thing, to say that abortion is part of their religious practice and therefore their religious rights and rituals are being infringed upon by abortion being restricted. Just, it was not what I was expecting with that. Now, I will say the quote that he said here, the battle for abortion rights is largely a battle of competing religious viewpoints, is a very interesting statement. And one that I believe many of our atheist, agnostic, and just pure secularist sort of friends would probably not be too comfortable with. But I think it's actually a fairly astute point. There's a lot of hand-wringing about the abortion law and just abortion in general on both sides. And I guess I should clarify, which, I mean, I guess should be obvious, but nowadays is not. I am supremely against abortion. I believe that it is completely antithetical to what we see biblically. And I really don't even feel like I have to defend that position very much, even though, again, nowadays that would need to be defended against certain groups and people who would say that abortion could be good at certain times for Christians. But I, you know, I can't even imagine a realistic argument on that for any sort of thing with abortion. Certainly for the 99% of all cases, or I don't know if it's 99, but it's high 90% of all cases which are elective abortions. I just can't imagine any sort of case. I know some try to make it, and I've actually read some, and I find them completely unconvincing. But anyway, just to clarify, I am against abortion. I think that it is a tragedy of our time, and I think that when I've had conversations with people about abortion, those who support it, once we've gotten past the stage where everyone's mad and hand-wringing and stuff, as I've said before, look, the destruction and the killing of babies has been happening. It's not a new thing. It's been happening throughout time. One of the ways that it was done, let's say in the Roman Empire at different times, was the exposure of children, where if you had a baby that you didn't want, you would just leave them out, and you'd go somewhere and you would just drop the baby off, and a few things would happen. They would either die, starvation, or just not having water or nutrients, and they would perish that way. A wild animal would get them. Or what would happen, especially during that time with exposure, sometimes people would run across the baby and they would take the baby in, and that baby would become a slave in that household. Honestly, as sad as that is to say, if the baby was lucky to get found and kept alive. But that's just one example of throughout history. People have been getting rid of children and trying to get rid of unwanted children. What's crazy about so much talking about women's rights on some things with it is that abortion, or the getting rid of children, at least historically in many ways, has disproportionately affected women. You saw that not even that long ago dealing with China and their one-child policy, where men were just viewed as more valuable and male babies. And so girls were aborted extremely more. That's why there's a huge disproportionate amount of men in China. I don't remember the number. It's millions and millions of men who have no shot of finding a spouse because there's just not women there. And that deals with the one-child policy, and China's done some different things, but it's always been ironic to me that it largely disproportionately affects women in different ways, in the sense of girls. Now, I know the arguments, and I'm not going to get into that now because I've heard them all in different things. But this is not the podcast to talk about abortion in that sort of way. I just wanted to clarify my position, which again I feel like should be obvious, as this is a Christian podcast. But people would disagree with even that, so I wanted to make sure it's clear. But again, getting back to this, the Satanic Temple, Satanists. They are apparently, according to Salon, they are ultimately one of the best sort of last and best hopes to save abortion rights in Texas. And as I mentioned, what does that say about your position when Satanists are one of the best ways to get what you ultimately want? And obviously, if you're atheist or agnostic or anything like that, you don't care. But I just think that is, I don't know if that's, sometimes whenever I go to make a decision, not all the time, but I'm making an unpopular decision or something, I also like to look around on who's on my team when it comes to that decision. Not all the time, but this is a way where if you're doing something or you're trying to make a choice, who's on your side? Who's on your team in this decision? Who are you joining in with when you make this decision? Who will be on your team? That's one way, honestly, to, at times, again, not everything and maybe not even most things, but to use it as a check to say, I'm about to say this or do this or think this or blah, blah, blah. If I do this, who's on my side? Who are the other people who are also thinking this way and talking this way and doing this way? Who's, in essence, on my team on this issue? And there have been times when I've want to think or do something, and then I've looked around at my quote-unquote team, and I thought, really not liking who my team is here. Let me make sure I'm not missing something if these are the people who are ultimately making the same decision or the same thought or the same action as me, whatever that is. And I think that, you look around, you go, Satanists, and one of our last and best hopes, maybe it's not a very good position. But again, this then spirals into abortion rights and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to get into that today. Maybe that'll be another episode. But I just thought, oh, man. Oh, boy. Your position when the Satanists and the Satanic Temple, they're your last and best hope. So that's one headline I saw, an article I saw about Satanists. But there was another one. And I was going to do these in separate podcast episodes. But I thought, hey, let's just go all in on Satanists this week. Give them their full due. And this headline, ultimately, is from the New York Post. It said, Bishop quits church after falling in love with satanic erotica writer. And as you can imagine, that headline very, very much caught my attention. And this is kind of how the article went. It said, this church official has chosen corsets over crucibles. A Spanish bishop, known for supporting gay conversion therapy and performing exorcism, has left the Roman Catholic Church after becoming smitten with a writer of satanic erotic fiction. And the person, apparently the satanic erotic fiction writer, is Sylvia. I don't even know how to say that last name, so we'll just go with Sylvia. And then here's a quote from the ex-bishop. He says, I have fallen in love and want to do things properly, said the bishop, according to a report by the BBC, which picked up on the story from the Spanish media outlets after news of why Novell, I believe that's his last name, quit, ultimately, when the news broke that he had quit. And continuing with the article, it says, before his scandalous resignation from the church, Novell was considered one of its rising stars, having become Spain's youngest bishop in 2010 at the age of 41. His August departure reportedly shocked the religious community, although BBC reported that he had met multiple times with Vatican officials, even the Pope himself, ahead of his resignation. The woman he broke his vow of celibacy and commitment to Christ to be with, Sylvia, whatever her last name is a divorced psychologist and erotic novelist whose titles include The Hell of Gabriel's Lust and a trilogy called Amnesia. Sylvia's work has explored themes of madness, lust, sadism, I think it's sadism. Should learn to read before I do this. God and Satan. Her publisher described her as a dynamic and transgressive author who turns upside down our ideas of morality and ethics, according to the National Post. Novell has admitted in previous interviews that his infatuation with Sylvia is not his first. Before becoming a man of God, he fell in love with and for a time wanted to marry and have children with an 18-year-old girl. So, quite an interesting article. Again, continuing with the whole Satanists sort of thing. We have a bishop here who finds himself smitten and apparently in love, so in love with that he is giving up his vow of celibacy and apparently his commitment to Christ, according to this article, to go and be with her, this woman who is a satanic erotica writer. And look, I'm no relationship expert by any means. I'll be the first to say that. Also, I've had bad relationships. I think we all have journeys that we go on. We all make choices that we look back and think, probably not the best decision. Or, man, I'd really do things differently if I could do that again. So, again, I'm not trying to say I'm some sort of expert. But I really feel like this is going to end very poorly for this guy, Novell, or whatever his name is. Really feel like this is going to be something he looks back on and goes, you know what? This was probably a really bad idea. You know what? If I could go back, I probably wouldn't do this. I really feel like giving up your whole career, your whole life in essence. I mean, he became a bishop, I guess the youngest one in Spain in 2010. He was already 41 years old. So this guy's not a spring chicken. What? Is he 52 or whatever it is now? It's giving it all up for love. But Not to be judgy. I don't want to judge. I don't know old Sylvia. Maybe she's a great person, but the juxtaposition of a bishop or a former bishop, I guess I should say, with a satanic erotica writer just seems, at least on the surface, like a terrible match. Like a match not made in heaven, to keep playing off those themes here. I just feel like it's going to end really poorly. I don't know what your thoughts are whenever you hear about this, but just feel like, oh, Novell, man, I just think you're going to really, really regret that decision. And that will go down as one where you tell, I guess if he ends up having kids or grandkids, now that he's not going to be celibate, or your friends, yeah, probably shouldn't have done that. Probably shouldn't have given it all up for old Sylvia. You never know. Maybe it works out for them. I don't know. From the Christian point of view, look, I've got plenty wrong with the Catholic Church or with their doctrines and theology. I think there's some big missteps there on a lot of things. But I think you're going to rather be in the Catholic Church's corner than the satanic erotica writer's corner overall. Just, I'm not claiming to be a theologian, but I really think, there's just questions about that. So that's what I've got, man. What an episode. Talking about the Church of Satan, talking about Satanists, talking about satanic erotica writer or something. Wow. Just the news was full of satanic stuff. So I just could not resist getting on here and talking about it. What a time to be alive, right? We've got a whole state worth of people's hopes hinged on the satanic temple on some things. And then we've got a bishop giving it all up for satanic writer. Man, what a time to be alive. You talk about the multiverse and all that fun stuff. What a great situation we find ourselves in so much of what's going on. And I'm kind of having some fun with it, but again, I could not resist taking some time to talk about this because, man, what a week or so of headlines there. So again, that's what I've got. Just found it interesting. Thought it'd be worth talking about, and again, not really giving Satanists enough airtime on this podcast. So that's what I've got. Hope you've enjoyed it, and however you're listening, first off, I appreciate it. But thank you, taking the time. Again, however you're listening, appreciate that sort of thing. But before I go, 3515, and have a good one.